Hello and welcome to the Passion Show. My name is Phil, and joining me as always is my co-host Kyle.
Hello.
This week we have returning guest Samir.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me back. I'm
Great
just
to have
making
you.
sure. Yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.
So in today's episode, we're talking about Image Comics. Samir, you're a big fan of Image Comics.
I do like Image Comics. I do. And you know what? Because I'm, for being a returning guest, I brought a little show and tell for you guys. I know we don't. I know we don't have any visual aspects just yet. But let me find my bag. Where did I put it?
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
This is sick. We've never done this.
This would be nice, so you guys can. I mean, obviously, the listeners can't see this, but you guys can have a little look through, so you get a better idea of what I'm talking about.
Oh,
my
wow.
God.
Do you know what we'll do? We'll put this on our Instagram. So
Yeah.
if you want to see the stuff he's showing us, go into the description. You'll see our Instagram.
So yeah, I just brought a few little ones I had lying around.
I've never heard of any of these.
Yeah, there's some real good
Okay.
stuff.
So he's just given us like a bunch of comic books, like
Yeah.
graphic novels.
Hell yeah.
And you've read all these?
Read all the, well, if there's one of those I've not read, I think it's Injection. That one down there. This one here is Warren Ellis. But yeah, man. So these are some of my favorite ones. The one I brought here is Saga. This is like
I think I've got one of
I've
them.
heard
Yeah.
about Saga.
I'll start off with Saga because
Okay.
obviously, well, to go back into like Image Comics, I suppose it was a company that was kind of founded in the 90s when these writers over at Marvel and DC felt like they just weren't getting paid enough.
Wasn't it Todd McFarlane? Isn't he? He created Spawn, didn't he?
Yeah. It was some guys that are like considered, I suppose, like comic book royalty now. There was like Jim Lee, who has like the highest selling comic book of all time. His X-Men #1 sold like 8 million copies or something like that. And then you've got Rob Liefeld, who invented Deadpool and Cable and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, these guys kind of rebelled against Marvel and DC and were like, we're just going to go kind of start our own thing and kind of do our own characters and give ourselves a fair share and kind of have the creative flexibility that we kind of wanted. Because again, with Marvel and DC, you're still limited to kind of the parameters of a superhero.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
yeah.
Well, I
mean?
was going to say, like,
Definitely.
when you talk about Image Comics, and especially the start of it, Marvel and DC very much feel like the villains, don't they?
Yeah.
Like, of the story, because all these creators, obviously, they're not getting, like, paid enough for their work, and
Yeah.
they're not getting,
They're
like...
creatively restricted.
Yeah, they're restricted, so they have to turn to, like, their own companies, basically, but they
Yeah.
kind of... People are kind of, like, unaware, aren't they?
Yeah.
Of, like, because I've never heard of any of these, really, apart from Saga.
Mhm.
So it's, like, it's a really unknown,
Yeah.
like hobby, isn't it?
For sure, yeah, and I think it's one of those things where it's like I genuinely think, because that's one of the great things, especially about Image Comics, is the wide range of genre it covers, to the point where I genuinely, honestly feel like there's a genre for everyone. There's a comic book line for everyone, like
That's brilliant.
whatever you're into. Like I genuinely feel like there is. Just some of the ones I've got here. I think I've brought like 5 or 6, and they're all like crazy different genres. So you got Paper Girls here, which is kind of like Stranger Things. For Tao here, this one is a really cool one because I suppose
She looks like Gamora.
she does. It's like a noir type thing. But the way I was kind of
nice.
trying, because obviously, it's like you said, Image Comics are sometimes they are quite obscure. So I always try and compare it to something else and like kind of try and picture that way.
Because if you're trying to get someone into it, you want to give them like a good entry point, yeah.
For sure. So the entry point I always give with for Tao is, so it's written by Ed Brubaker, and he is known for kind of like doing noir, spy, thriller type stuff. And he wrote the Winter Soldier comic that the film was based on.
That's sick.
So that's always like, if you like the Winter Soldier and you like that kind of...
So it's the same sort of vibes because it's the same writer.
Yeah, same sort of vibes. It's the same writer, yeah. And then over here, Saga, this is kind of like probably been the biggest comic of the last 10 years, I'd say.
So what's Saga about?
Saga is the way they kind of pitch it. I suppose it's quite a lazy kind of explanation, but the closest and easy, most understandable one is it's like Star Wars for grown-ups, is what they say.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a space fantasy opera type stuff. And it's kind of about, you've got Marco and Alana who are, they're both, it's like a Romeo and Juliet type situation. They're both in love with like the opposite race and they shouldn't be. And they have this little secret baby, which means the whole galaxy is going to end up after them. And it's just about them kind of like trying to travel around space, have a nice life, raise their kid,
Wow.
I can confirm there's laser swords.
There's laser swords.
Yeah.
I think in that one there's a big, huge, giant penis as well.
Oh my
And
god, I'm
the-
going to try and find that.
Yeah, try and find the giant penis. I think it's around there somewhere. Yeah, I think you're getting close.
Hovering over it.
But I mean, it's wild. Like, some of the stuff is so wild. And this is what I was saying. Like, they kind of have the creative freedom to do whatever they
Yeah.
want.
There's like a big spider woman.
Yeah. If you're listening,
Yeah.
just search like Fiona Staples Saga art, and you'll just see like the crazy, crazy world.
The
Yeah, it looks
artwork
mad.
on all
Like,
these comics, they're all incredible.
yeah, I
Like,
feel like
it's so nice.
I feel like the artwork kind of takes center point, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, especially because like these artists have left the big companies. That they seems really focused and really artistic, and
Yeah.
like, they have a lot of creative freedom. Is that something that you enjoy compared to like Marvel and DC?
Definitely. It's like, again, it's not as such a knock on Marvel and DC, because obviously some of my favorite comics are in that world, but at the end of the day, it's still in that world. Do you know what I mean? It's still, as you know, like, I love my favorite Marvel character is Daredevil, and you know, some of the world is great that they create, but it still will forever be Hell's Kitchen. It will always, he'll always have to kind of be in Hell's Kitchen. The same way Batman always sort of has to be in Gotham. Obviously, you can't
There's rules, isn't there?
Exactly, yeah. You do have to play by the rules. The character come first, and the writers kind of come second.
Because they need their like the core characters to stay the same.
Exactly,
and that kind of limits like character arcs and stuff like that, doesn't
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Because like if Batman ends up happy, then what are you gonna do in the next comic?
Like when Captain America says "Hail Hydra" and it was really controversial.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's the thing, is like, you think about some of these characters have been around for like 75 years, and they've had to play by those rules for 75 years. So at a certain point, they're going to start running out of things to do. Do you know what I mean? And that's not to say that there aren't some good superhero comics now, because there is. But it's still within the rules. Whereas these Image comics, they're completely the writer's creation. They have like full creative kind of freedom.
Is that like a thing that's like said to them when they join and stuff like that? Like, you have full creative control when you're writing for us.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And that's kind of how Image was founded. They were kind of saying, we just want to give writers and authors a chance to kind of A, get a fair share of their cut, and B, kind of do whatever they want as comic books, because we trust the writers and that kind of stuff. And so far it's kind of worked, especially in this last 10 years. Like I said, it's just been this boom of like...
Is it on the rise, like indie comics and stuff?
Yeah. I mean, Marvel comics and DC comics have been, steadily falling. I mean, it kind of peaks up a bit here and there with the superhero films that are going on now, but I mean, obviously it's nothing. Like I said, I think it was 92, Jim Lee's X-Men comic, and that sold 8 million copies. Now comics are lucky if it sells like, I don't know, 800,000 or something. Like, you know, that's a big sale now. So so it is on the decline, and it seems a lot like people that have kind of this seems to be my kind of general perspective on it, is that people that were comic book fans before this superhero boom are now sort of turning to Image and Dark Horse and different companies like this.
I think when like the films, like the MCU is out, you kind of want something else when you're not in the cinema, aren't you? Because like Marvel's so big for its on-screen characters now, like compared to their comic book endeavors. It's like their thing. Yeah. So if you wanna read a comic book, it might be better to branch out a bit. And there is also like Image comics that have been made into films, like, didn't you say Kingsman and Kick-Ass and stuff like that? Yeah,
Kingsman, Kick-Ass, both of those. Obviously there's the Spawn film, but let's not talk about that one. They're remaking a Spawn film with Jamie Foxx, I think, right?
Oh, really?
That was what I was reading.
I think I've heard something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a few films. They're on about kind of. There's a lot of these comics that they talk and try and buy rights to and stuff. Saga's the most example one, because like I said, that's just been...
I kind of feel like if they did Saga, it would be like, so they'd make it and it'd cost like 250 million and then no one would see
like
it.
Yeah.
Or like Valerian,
for sure.
The City of a Thousand
Planets,
they
would just give it a huge budget, expect that it has this built-in fan base, and it does, but not enough to like make a big Hollywood production worth it. I mean, I think obviously the same as a lot of these kind of stuff. The same with most comic books, I feel, is because it's a long-form storytelling. It'd be best off as a TV series or an animated series or something like that, just because there's so much. It's the same as books. It's the same as all these things. It's just there's so much character development sometimes. To put it in 2 hours or whatever, you know, it's just tough.
Yeah. Do you kind of enjoy that it's indie, that it's like not mainstream? Like when you're reading them, does it feel like more personal to you because they're not as widely known? For sure.
I think that's always been quite a thing with comic book culture in general. Is like it's always kind of been people get really personally attached to certain characters or certain
like
stories.
Getting in before the crowd does.
Yeah, and that's always the thing now. I mean, again, you kind of look at, you know, it always feels like they want to be on the outside looking back in. So there is that thing, and especially because a lot of these things, again, no one's ever heard of them, but people might have heard of the authors. Like I said, subconsciously, you might know who's who, but it's rare that the personal attachment you gain with these certain characters, it's rare that anyone else really does, kind of in your circle, unless you're like, you know, big time, if you work at a comic book shop or something. Do you know what I mean? East of West there, which you just pulled up there, the way I always pitch that one is, so you know the film John Carter?
Yeah.
Just imagine if that was really, really, really good.
It says, is that Jonathan Hickman?
Yeah.
He did the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, he did Fantastic Four. He did an X-Men run. I think he did a New Avengers run as well.
Yeah.
He's a beast at the minute. He's one of the big ones.
Is he like one of the biggest writers at the minute?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. You've got him. I think of the biggest ones. You've got him. You've got Jeff Lemire, he does some really great Moon Knight stuff at Marvel. So Moon Knight, who's done some great stuff there. So he's now working on some stuff over at Image. But yeah, a lot of the big writers kind of do end up here really, unless you're like a Brian Michael Bendis, you know, who's like end up doing all the big events for Marvel and stuff. But again, like I said, because there's never really that much of a big events, it's more personal stories. Sometimes you get big stakes, but a lot of the time it's more character driven, more like, you know, flexibility in that way.
Do you think like it is going to keep growing to the point where more people get onto it and it'll be as accessible, or do you think it'll kind of stay in this sort of underground culture?
Yeah,
like this cult following.
I think the best chance it has of kind of like either growing its fandom or maintaining it is if they start to kind of adapt them into like I said, TV series. I think that'd be the best bet. I think if you do films, like you said, they're going to spend too much budget, it's going to flop. But I think if you do put it into a TV series, you know, who'd have thought like Game of Thrones, this fantasy obscure book, would it be as big as it is now? And I genuinely think there's some stuff in these comic books that are as good as Game of Thrones and are as good as like these other kind of texts and any other genre you get. So I think if it does get a chance and kind of does come live action, then I like its chances.
I think something like Netflix would be perfect.
I was just thinking like a good Netflix original, like a TV show, would suit it quite well, because with the Netflix originals, people aren't aware of like where they come from or what they're adapted from. Like people just watch them, don't they?
They just see who's in it or like the trailer or whatever, and then they just go with it. Yeah, like it's kind of weird. There's like a whole, again, to talk about the comic book people on the outside looking in, there's a whole thing. People kind of feel like Stranger Things copied Paper Girls because it came out like a year or two before Stranger Things, and it's really, really, really similar. It's like, you know, the same kind of kids riding around on bikes and the supernatural shit happens.
I know when I was watching Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, and that, I don't know if it is a comic, but it feels like one.
Yeah, it is a comic. Yeah, I've not read it myself. I think it's because what was the name of the dude that was writing it? I forget his name.
Oh, Max Landis.
That weird dude, yeah.
That guy. He's mad, that
crazy dude,
he's a mad bastard.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Is it good? I was going to say.
Yeah, it's great.
Is that a Netflix original as well?
Yeah. So, like, what I'm saying is, like, shows like that can sort of get funding somehow, and even though it got cancelled, but, like, you can get, like, a good couple series out, and if people, like, I get attached to it, especially if it's good, like, character building and stuff like that, there's no reason why it wouldn't be successful, you know what I mean?
Definitely, and I feel like, you know, maybe in a dream world, you know, it's kind of like we've got this superhero boom at the minute, and if people eventually ever do tire of the superhero films, but they still want films within the comic book world, I think there could be some juicy stuff in there, man.
Yeah, because I know people sort of do pine after like the adaptations of these stories, because especially like I just said then with the superhero boom, like people are starting to go to indie comics because all the mainstream ones have kind of been done now. Like when you think about how big Endgame is and how it crosses everyone over, people kind of want something else, don't they?
Yeah.
And it's like a whole other market, basically.
Yeah, I think so. And it's like, because I always think, this feels like I'm in the majority of at least kind of people I kind of talk to in the comic book world, but it feels like favorite stories are always the smaller personal ones. It's rarely ever the big event ones like Infinity War or like Secret Wars or anything like that. It's, obviously they're really fun because it's really fun to see all the characters together.
It's the crossovers, isn't it?
It's like it's just like the scale of it. But yeah, it's just like the solo stories. It's just like
the character.
Yeah, and it's like the comic that I always recommend all the time is like, I know this isn't an Image comic, but it's the 2012 Hawkeye, which is just one of my most favorite Marvel comics I've ever read. It's first of all, it's a comedy, and it's basically just about him. Obviously, it's just coming out the same year as the first Avengers, so it's kind of about him just hanging out at a flat when he's not being an Avenger, and like no one kind of believes he's an Avenger, and he just finds this dog and starts hanging out with this dog. It's just the best. It's just the best, man. It's real great. But yeah. So like I said, there's probably a genre in here for everyone.
Yeah. So there's like you've brought these ones, but are these the sort of ones that you'd recommend to people to read to get into Image Comics?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few I always kind of think of as good first ones. You know, I keep banging on about Saga, but that's the one. If I recommend a comic book to someone, that's usually the first one I go with because it's just a great starter comic. You start off right at the beginning. You don't need to know it.
Is it like not too much straight away? Like you can, it's like get you into it.
Yeah.
Because I imagine with the creative freedom that they get, you must get a lot of out there crazy stuff.
Well, you do. I mean, if you flip open to the first few pages, you'll see it's like the comic book starts open at the very, very opening scenes is a childbirth, and it's a very graphic childbirth. It's very descriptive. It's very visual.
Oh my god, I like that. Oh yeah,
for sure. Yeah, man. You see, they don't hold back everything. They don't hold back. Yeah. So basically the narrator of the whole story is the baby that's born there and then
Oh
at
my
that
good
moment.
lord.
Oh my god!
So you're
wow.
kind of introduced to the story at the same time the narrator kind of comes in the voice. So she's called Hazel, and
Wow.
she kind of narrates their
Is she like
parent.
smart?
Yeah, it seems like she's kind of presenting it from like a modern day, but she's narrating like their parents' adventure and stuff, so as if she was there all the time. So it's just like her kind of just talking you through this crazy
That's
story.
really interesting.
It could
Yeah.
be it could be that it's not a fantasy world, but because the baby's just got an imagination.
It could just be. It might just wake up at the end. It's just
It
a
could
baby.
just be normal scenarios.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a comic book that literally every single panel, sometimes every single page, just surprises you. It just completely catches you off guard. It takes turns like no other. It's just it's an insane, like it's just a crazy, well written, consistent. I mean, we're into talk about a long running thing. So I think it's currently on volume 54.
Wow.
So it's been running since 2011, I think.
Yeah.
It's like it's a long time.
It's nearly 10 years now.
Yeah, and the crazy thing, they announced it like 2 weeks ago. The Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples, who write together, they announced like 2 weeks ago. They're like, okay, we've been asked so many times like how long is it going to run for, and we officially want to announce we're at the halfway point. So they've got
Oh
a
my
whole
God.
other 54 issues to go.
Wow.
So they're going to run to
Wow.
100 issues, and I'd be surprised if it wasn't in like one of the top selling comics for the rest of its run.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
It looks really interesting though. Like I genuinely want to like look into it because I know like for me, Image Comics seem a bit daunting.
Yeah,
Because when you go to like Marvel or DC or something like that, you know that at least you're getting characters that you know.
yeah,
And
yeah.
like the stories will sort of revolve around
It's just about
the
getting out of
stuff
your
you
comfort
know.
zone.
Yeah, but it's really out your comfort zone. But I
Yeah.
like that. I like
Yeah.
that each panel can like surprise you.
For sure, and it's like I said, I think some of the way the character written, they're so endearing, and they do such a good job of like introducing to them in a panel. Like they'll say one line of dialogue, and you get okay, this is everything I need to know about them. They're really like good at because again they've got the visual aspects as well, so you can kind of see a character, see one line it says, and you're like, oh, so that's who they are. Kind of stuff. So it's really quick and easy way of kind of understanding who's who. There's a few others like just to rattle off the top of my head. There's one called The Wicked and the Divine, which I don't have here with me, which is just crazy. That's another one I recommend as like a good starter. So that's basically about this girl. She's like a big rock and roll fan, but in this kind of alternate reality, this girl growing up in London, all the rock stars are like versions of gods, like different gods. So it's like Egyptian gods, Norse
I think
gods.
I've heard of this.
Wow.
Yeah. So and then it's just kind of about her becoming like this ultimate kind of fangirl slash groupie slash gets involved with these gods in this rock band. She kind of gets up into this upper glitz and glamour world of gods.
That's insane.
It's real cool, and it's narrated it's drawn really well. There's like, for example, but they kind of do modern versions of the gods. So there's like the Greek god Dionysus, who is like the
God of wine.
god of wine and partying, and I think it's
And
fertility as well.
grapes.
Something. yeah, all that kind of stuff. So in the modern day version, Dionysus is just this absolute fuckhead, man. He just takes acid all the time. He's just in raves. He's just like they have this whole
Because he would
chapter.
be.
They have this whole chapter where he like gives our main character some of this whatever he's taken, and the whole chapter's done in like this acid weird trip.
Oh, that's sick.
God.
It's real cool. I wish I had that with me, but I think I left
Yeah,
that
yeah.
back in Nottingham. But yeah.
That's one of the crazier elevator pitches that I've heard in my life.
The elevated pictures for some of these comics sound like a crazy.
so out there,
They
aren't
sound
they?
like a crazy man's ramblings a lot of the time. Yeah.
But I find that really interesting. Like, I think there's a lot to be unpacked. We could even do like an episode in the future on like different
Like
Certain
comics
Saga
and
itself
stuff.
or something like
Yeah.
that. I'm good for that.
Yeah,
The last one I'll drop on you is like elevator pictures. This is the best or last because man, I can't say enough about this comic book as well. It's so fun. It's called Sex Criminals,
Oh my god.
right?
I'm sold.
And it is exactly what it sounds like. It's about this lady and this man. They fall in love, and they basically turn into this Bonnie and Clyde. Like they kind of go around robbing banks because they discover that when they have sex, time stops.
Oh my god.
Just them.
Yeah, just that. So
That sounds like a
they
Dave
ha-
Chappelle joke.
they have sex and everything around them time stops, and then they go loot up the bank, and
Oh my god.
it's
Sick.
it's the funniest thing, man. It's just you can tell the writers have so much fun with it. You
Yeah,
know
I
what
like
mean?
I like the creativity. I like knowing the writers of it are enjoying it.
Yeah,
and I think
yeah.
that it like bleeds through, doesn't it?
For sure, you can feel it. You can really feel it.
Yeah,
that they're
yeah.
just like they're just having fun. They're just goofing around, and it just feels like friends being like, "What if we did this?"
Yeah, I guess that sort of ties into how personal it is, like because
Yeah.
they're so small and not as well known. You can tell that the writers are just sort of writing it for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that many people aren't buying them, but they know that there is a dedicated fan base.
For sure.
And if there is a dedicated fan base, then it must be good. So
Yeah.
like it'd be good if more people could get into it, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, man. But like I said, it's like, I mean, for anyone that does want to sort of get into it, like I said, I've mentioned a few, but if you just go on the Image comic book page, I mean, they'll have like they have like the best selling ones, and you can just start with some of those and work your way through. But like I said, even like that, I think they have a genres page where they have a genres page that's just like 3 pages long of different genres, and you can just kind of pick whatever one you want.
So I think on that note, we'll sort of wrap it up there. Also, I want to say thank you to Kyle for being my co-host.
Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, thanks to Samir for coming on and telling us about Image Comic.
Thank you guys.
If you have any passions yourself, feel free to like leave them in the comments below, because we'd love to talk about your passion.
And tell me if you're going to buy some Image comic books.
Hit us up in the DMs if you want to come on the show yourself.
Yeah, if you want to come on the show, then send us a message, because we'd love to have you on to talk about your passion. But other than that, we'll see you next time.
Have a good day.